my talk of the day as geotechnic for infrastructure. All of us know the emphasis on infrastructure today. Even in the recent lockdown period address by the Honorable Prime Minister, he very clearly mentioned, 5 pillars of self-reliant India. What are those 5 pillars? The first one he mentioned was economy. The next one he talked about is infrastructure. And then, he talked about system, technology driven system, vibrant demography, and then demand. So why I am saying this is, though we are in the middle of some serious pandemic, we will very quickly switch over to huge, work towards the growth in infrastructure all over the globe and definitely in India. So with this brief note, I move forward. I'll be speaking for about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And in case I take little longer, I would like Rahil to inform me. I have made my presentation like this, a brief introduction about geotechnical engineering. I list a few geotechnical challenges, and then I would be speaking about case studies. Some of the cases where failures have happened, and basically in civil engineering, we learn from case studies. And in geotechnical engineering, that is the order of the day. I have I have 4 case studies to talk about. I think I should be, occupying the desired time by that. If at all there is some time left, I'll be talking about foundations, specifically a little on pile raft foundation. Well, friends, all of you are involved in construction industry in some way or the other. Maybe some of your students now who will be, eagerly waiting to be in the industry. If I ask you a question, can you name popular, most used construction material? Quickly, every one of you will say cement, concrete, steel. Very few will say that soil is also a construction material. But friends, you should understand, if you are building an embankment, an earthen embankment, or if you are building a dam, earthen dam, rock-filled dam, entire material is made out of rock, made out of soil. So I always state that soil is the most common, most used construction material. Where do you get the soil from? It is available in nature. You don't have to manufacture it. At the most, right, soil may not be available at your place. You may have to transport from some other place, or you may have to modify its properties. That's why I said it is least expensive. Friends, I hope you will agree with me that soil is the most common, most used, least expensive construction material. In addition, whatever structure you build, whether it is a dam, tall structure, residential building, it has to be built on soil, built on ground. Therefore, soil is most important to civil engineers. I don't have to mention, it is the oldest construction material. It is there as a construction material since the day man has stepped into this earth. As I said earlier, it is naturally available. You don't have to spend anything for manufacturing it because it is available in nature. So you may have to spend a little in transport. You may have to spend a little in modifying its properties. In one of the next slides, I'll be talking about why soil is a complex material. And as I said, today, the order is, if you find a soil at a place not fit, you don't have to panic. You can make it fit. If you find its strength poor, you increase its strength. If you find that it is very porous, you reduce the porosity. If you find that it is highly impermeable, you can provide good drainage facility. So you have the capacity to modify the properties of soil to the requirements. I said soil is a complex material. You can look at this picture. It is a earthen bund. If you closely look, it has got particles of different sizes, shapes connected together, and these are all solid particles made from mineral grains or sometimes even organic matter which is decayed, and in between them there is space. That space is filled with water sometimes, air sometimes, and both of them sometimes. So it is a combination of solids, water, and air. And when you load, there is every possibility that the particles may displace from the initial position. So there is a possibility that continuously the shape of the entire soil mass, the volume of the soil mass may keep changing. There is also scope for water to continuously move through the pore space. And hence, it makes a very complex material. How do you get this soil? It is due to the weathering of rocks at the surface of Earth. But as I mentioned, it is a wonderful construction material. You can use soil to manufacture bricks, manufacture tiles, manufacture earthenware, all of which are excellent construction materials. It is a foundation material. All structures are to be founded on soil, and soil bears that load. Soil takes all the forces from the structure. It is used to construct embankments. An earthen embankment, maybe for transporting vehicles, like you need a level surface for the road construction, or maybe a railway track construction, or it could be even used as a dam, an earthen dam, a rock-fill dam, to store water on one side. Soil also helps in filling up areas. You dig up for foundation, you build the foundation, remaining portion you will have to fill up. You build a retaining wall, the back of the retaining wall has to be filled up. You have a low-lying area, you want to bring it up to certain level to bring everything to one level, so you fill up soil there. So it's an excellent material to fill those hollow zones, and hence make the construction better. It also carries wastes. You use soil for the construction of landfills, environmental protection, and hence soil has huge number of applications. I just listed a few of them. As I mentioned to you, today is the day of infrastructure, not just in India, all over globe. You see any budget, most of the money is budgeted towards infrastructure. Could be road infrastructure, could be railway, number of airports, construction, several things. Whenever we talk about, I hope all of you agree with me that soil is the most common, most used, and least expensive construction material. In addition, you will build structures on soil only. It bears all the load of the structure. Therefore, I want you to accept my statement that it is most important to civil engineers. I quickly go through this. I mentioned that it is the oldest construction material. It is a material naturally available, and you don't have to spend anything for using this as a construction material. You can modify the properties of soil. Today we have so much of advancement in technology, in geotechnical engineering. You can get the soil of whatever property you want today. You want to increase the safe bearing capacity from, let us say, 50 kilonewton per meter square to 200, you can do so. You want to make it very porous, you can do so. So that's it. And then, I'll probably in one of the slides show you that it is a complex construction material. Requesting control.
No, don't accept. Don't accept.
Oh, I
Just
just accepted it here. I don't know why. When I change the slide, can you see the
yeah,
change?
you can continue now.
No,
It's
no,
fine.
are you able to see the slide change?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, okay. And then I mentioned that soil is a material which is a combination of solids, liquid, and gas. And solids are of different sizes and shapes connected together by the contact. And when you apply the load, when you keep the soil for a long time, there is every possibility that the positions of the solids may change, and hence there is every possibility that the volume of the soil may change. In addition, the white space may be filled with water sometimes, air sometimes. Therefore, with time these keep changing, which make the soil complex. I said, soil has many uses, many applications. One is the manufacturing of bricks, tiles, and earthenware. It is a foundation material. Everything is put on soil. Therefore, it takes the load. You use soil to construct dams. You use soil to construct embankments, and even to fill up the areas between. Maybe you have a foundation built, and after building, the hollow spaces are filled with soil, or you build a retaining wall and the back of the retaining wall is filled with soil, or sometimes you may have a low lying area, you want to fill it up. That for that also you use soil. And unfortunately we use soil even for dumping waste. So for all the construction of landfills and many environmental protection structures, we use soil. I have named this topic as geotechnic for infrastructure because today is the day for infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, it could be the transport infrastructure, it could be building infrastructure, anything all over the globe. Emphasis is on that. And if you look at any budget, including the Indian budget, majority of the money is on infrastructure. Whenever we say infrastructure, it is always the civil engineers who have a big role to play. That's why today there is so much demand for civil engineers. And unfortunately, still we cannot build any structure in air. All of the structures will have to be built on ground. Therefore, any construction, anything in which civil engineers are involved, it is the geotechnical engineer who will always arrive first, who will always start the construction. So I'm just mentioning this to tell you the role of geotechnical engineers in infrastructure. In general, if you take any structure, let us say you want to build a 20-storied building. One part of the building is above the ground, superstructure, the foundation. So if you just think of the foundation construction, it has many stages involved. So imagine that you want to build a 20-storied building for which the foundation is to be built. The first thing you do is, you excavate to the depth at which you want to build your foundation. Strictly before that, of course, you may these days have the exploration done through borehole, and still, after excavation, you try to see what kind of soil is there. If necessary, you possibly conduct field test at that depth, at the depth at which you want to build the foundation. Or in addition, you take samples of soil from here, okay, and then take them to the laboratory and conduct tests. You conduct those tests which will help you in identifying the soil, which will help you in classifying it as per the Indian standards. You also will conduct tests which will help you for the design. Maybe you want to design a foundation. Then you need SBC of soil. You need settlement characteristics of soil. So you conduct shear tests. You conduct consolidation test. And hence, you prepare a soil report. And that soil report will be an input in the design office. You use the data from the soil report and hence design the foundation, design the geotechnical structure. And once it is designed, you prepare the drawing and you come back to the field and do the construction. So this is a cycle which has to happen for all kinds of structures, whether it is a simple structure or a complex structure. So only thing is, for a complex structure, it might take more time. You may have to do more rigorous testing. You'll be taking doing the tests at different locations. But this process of going to the depth at which the foundation is to be put, doing the tests there, collecting soil samples, going to the laboratory, doing tests, preparing the reports, and then doing the design using that report and preparing the drawing, going back to the field is a complete cycle for all kinds of structures. Then earlier it was foundation which was the most important geotechnical structure. I call a structure as geotechnical when you need to design, whenever you are doing a design of any structure, you need the knowledge of not only that material which is used for structure, but also the soil with which it is in contact. So therefore, all those structures which are in direct contact with soil, and when you are designing, you need the knowledge of soil, I have called as geotechnical structure. So a geotechnical structure can be a foundation, a retaining wall, a dam, earthen dam, an embankment, canal, road, a slope, tunnel, landfill, many. Earlier days, the emphasis was on foundation alone. But today, all these are extremely important structures. In any project, you may have a combination of these: foundation, retaining wall, maybe tunnel, several things, road, and so on. So all of them should be treated extremely importantly. And whenever you want to design any of them, you need not only the knowledge of the structure you're dealing with, but the soil with which the structure is in contact, the structure is interacting. I was just trying to analyze what are the big challenges in geotechnical engineering. So I could list many of them. But from the elementary point of view, I just thought of, talking to you about a few current challenges which we have in geotechnical engineering. As I said earlier, it is a complex construction material. So complex soil behavior, and then you have soils of all kinds. If you're lucky, most of the times you might find good soil, but then there may also be a tricky soil. There may also be a naughty soil. I just called it as treacherous soil. Then one of the challenges we face today is exploring the properties of soil properly. Then we have problems with deep excavation and in general earthwork. Very quickly, we'll try to talk about each of them. Soil is the complex most construction material you can ever think of. You have steel, you have concrete, but soil is very difficult to understand. If I give you steel and ask you, find out what its capacity could be, you will not take much time. You will say, okay, it can take this much load. Or if you subject it to tension, it is at this load, it will fail. If I give you concrete block and give you some properties like, how much of each material I have put, what is its age and so on, you will be able to estimate how much load it can take. But then it is not that easy to understand soil. If I ask you to assess how much load it can take, how much deformation it can experience, it is not that easy. The reason is soil has most of these, properties which make it very complex. Plus, the initial condition also plays an important role. I'm not going deep into all these things which you can learn by yourself or already. It is a porous material. It exists in different phases, solid, liquid, gas. It is permeable, particulate, heterogeneous, anisotropic, and so many of these. But I always try to draw your attention and tell you that it is not only a complex material, but it is also a smart material. It is an interesting material. It is an intelligent material. Why do I say that it is a smart material? I have put a few points here. I hope all of you agree with me that soil is colorful. It exists in different colors. You have red soil, you have black soil, you have light colored soil, you have dark colored soil. I hope all of you agree with me that it is sensitive. What do I mean by sensitive? It gets disturbed when you disturb it. If you leave it intact in its place, it has some strength. It probably will be happy. But if you disturb it, try to bring it to the laboratory, strength may reduce. There will be, changes in some properties. There are some soils which are sufficiently strong in their place. But the moment you think of bringing them to the laboratory, you'll find them lose all their strength. You call them as hypersensitive clays. So soil is sensitive. It doesn't want to be disturbed. The moment you disturb, it loses some of its vital properties. It has memory. It knows exactly, what load, what pressure it was subjected to before. If the present pressure is more than the previous one, it behaves in some way. If it is less or equal to, it behaves in a different way. I always explain this through E log P curve. So it has memory. It knows what exactly was the load or pressure it was subjected to before. And then, it changes its properties with time. Say water content. Water content is not same always. During rainy season, water content in soil may be more. And during dry season, same water, same soil, water content may be less. So I'm just mentioning these points to tell you that these are similar to human beings. Therefore, I always compare soil to human beings. Or I always say that soil is a material which has life, unlike steel, unlike concrete. So naturally, when you have a material with life, it is something which is intelligent. So what does it do? If you understand it well, if you respect, it behaves according to your liking, according to your taste. On the other hand, if you misunderstand, if you don't give much importance, if you are a little careless, it will hit back. How does it hit back? It will hit back by showing some failures. So friends, I mentioned all these to tell you that we need to respect soil. Anything you build, you will build on soil or with soil. So if you understand it well by yourself, it is fine. But if you know that there is something more in the soil, and if you feel that you don't understand it very well, please don't take any decision by yourself. You need to consult an expert. It is the expert with deeper knowledge on soil who can recommend. Therefore, go for good soil reports. And even from the soil report, if you don't understand certain things, maybe you need to consult some more expert to make sure that you are not going to make any mistake. And absolutely, if you don't make mistake, I assure you, soil will never misbehave. And hence, you will never have problems of failure of structure because of soil. So take care about this aspect. Then, as I said, you have soils of all kind. At a given place, most of the times you may find good soil. But as I said earlier, sometimes soil can be not here. Sometimes soil can be a difficult one. If you look at our Indian condition, we have many soils which are difficult to deal with. So I just call them as treacherous soils in India. I have listed a few of the treacherous soils in India. Say marine clay, as the name itself indicates, it is clay which is seen in the coastal India. We have a long coast from west to south to east, thousands of kilometers long. And here we have marine clay. And then you have alluvial soil, young soil. It may be on the river banks, so Indo-Gangetic Plain, Kaveri, or it may be elsewhere also, which is a young soil. And then you have desert sand, especially in Rajasthan and upper part of Gujarat. And we have expansive soil, BC soil, Indian black cotton soil. About 30% of the country, especially in Karnataka, Maharashtra, and little of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, at various locations we have BC soil. We also have lateritic soils, in the west coast and also in Bidar region in Karnataka, northern part of Karnataka. And at many places I have seen this loose silt, especially in Western Ghats, loose silt. So each of these have some problems or the other which are created to the construction engineer, and you have to be careful with. I tried to list the kind of problems you face with different treacherous soils. For instance, marine clay, it is a soft soil, extremely plastic. Therefore, what you have to be worried about is compressibility, the settlement. So if you want to build any structure on it, you have to check what kind of settlement it experiences. And if it is within limits, okay. If not, you may have to treat the soil or maybe change the kind of structure you are planning. And in general, it also has low strength. SBC is low. So you can't build any structure straight away on this. In addition, because it is marine clay, it contains a lot of salt. Therefore, any construction material like concrete or steel, if you use, you have to be bothered about the weathering action. So you need to think about the effect of salt on concrete or steel. Therefore, you have to protect them from this. Alluvial soil, it's a young soil, recently formed. Therefore, it is likely to have very low density. It is likely to have very low bearing capacity. And in earthquake prone area, it is also likely to have liquefaction characteristics. It could be clay or it could be sandy soil. And if it is clay, quite likely that the safe bearing capacity of the soil is low, which means, if you want to build a complex structure, automatically the construction of foundation is a challenge. Desert sand, as I said, it is in the Rajasthan and Gujarat region. Usually it is fine uniform sand. Therefore, automatically its strength will be low. You can't really compact it to a good good density. And then, its permeability is also high. So you find it extremely low in SBC, safe bearing capacity. Luckily, we don't have too many big cities in those belts. But if you want to think of tall and complicated construction there, and this soil, extends to great depth, you might not find, hard rock at, close vicinity. So that poses some challenge. And BC soil, all of you know, it has a love towards water. Even, the place where Professor Ravi Kumar works, Davangere, lot of places BC soil is there. It loves water. When you allow water to go into it, it simply drinks water and hence wells. And if water goes out, it shrinks. So it experiences alternate swelling and shrinkage, and any structure you build on it, it's likely to be subjected to movement. especially when it is a light structure. Then you have laterites. Generally, laterites become very soft when in combination with water, and they're extremely porous. You have to be careful with that. Otherwise, pretty strong. You can actually cut them to any shape. There are many, bricks manufactured out of laterites in coastal Karnataka, and beautiful red colored laterite you get, but you have to be bothered about the porous nature of it. I mentioned loose silt because, I have done a lot of work in the Western Ghats, Madikeri region. So you see silty soil intact in its position, that soil looks okay. But the moment you take it out to and bring it to the laboratory for testing, you find that the shear strength is very low. So bearing capacity, you will find that it will always be around 50 kilonewton per meter squared or even less. So you want to build anything on this, you have to be extremely careful. So I just called it as loose silt, especially found in Western Ghats, which has low strength. So I have shown you, different pictures of treacherous soils. This is BC soil, this is lateritic soil, and this is the sand, desert sand, and you have highly plastic soil. Could be alluvial soil or marine clay. So whenever you deal with treacherous soils, again, don't take the decision by yourself. The message is you have to be careful. The third problem which I posed is with respect to soil exploration. Whenever you want to do any construction, it is essential that you should know the kind of soil you have there. It is essential to know how much load it can carry, what its safe bearing capacity is. And when you put the load, when you put the structure, will it deform? If so, how much? Unfortunately, we are very poor in understanding what is there below the ground. Maybe we are smart in space technology. You might even say what is there on Moon, what is there on Mars. But we really do not know what is there below the ground. It's not easy for us to go below the ground. So in this picture, you see these geotechnical engineers who were actually trying to explore what is there below the ground for the construction of some structure. And when they were digging, when they were exploring, they found this. Can you see this? This is a python. Fortunately for them, this was a dead python. So until you explore, you will not know what is there. So it is extremely important to explore properly what kind of material is there below the ground. That is exactly what these people are doing. Either by open excavation, people try to understand what is there, or maybe you're going to have boreholes from which you try to find out the kind of soil you have at different depths. And you can do that only at a few places, not everywhere. That is a big challenge. So you have to predict what will be there in the other places. And you can see in this picture, soil is of different nature, different color, different texture, same borehole at different depths. And that is the challenge the geotechnical engineers will have. So till what depth you have to go, and then what kind of a foundation to put is a big challenge. Normally, in a soil exploration report, soil test report, people actually do the test, then collect the data and represent those data. In addition, they do the analysis and they make certain recommendations. Normally, a soil report will have a borehole detail, something like this, in which along the depth, what are the different kinds of soils encountered is shown, at what depth the groundwater table is there is shown, and then you will have the report of SPT N value from ground surface till certain depth at a interval of sometimes 0.5 meters, but usually about 1 meter or so. These days you may even have the shear wave velocity. You'll try to find water content in soil, density, type of the soil, strength parameters of soil, settlement characteristics, at different levels. Use this data to interpret and find out or what is the classification of soil, at what depth you need to build your foundation. So you have to recommend the depth of foundation. You have to recommend the type of foundation if possible. And if there is any ground improvement required, you will have to recommend. You, of course, will give SBC of soil. Sometimes, instead of interpreting it as SBC, we interpret as allowable bearing pressure. So these are all the things which are necessary in a soil report, in a complete soil report. Unfortunately, as on today, we don't have many good, reliable soil testing companies, and hence you are likely to have very erratic reports. So friends, I tell you to go to trustworthy people and try to get the best out of them, because only when you have a good soil report, you'll be in a position to think of savings in foundations, and hence savings in total cost. I've just tried to show here, if you have a ordinary site where you have good soil, if you don't do any soil testing, the cost of the project is generally going to be high. But if you test soil, you will be in a position to say that the right soil is available here at right depth. Therefore, you can think of the most economical foundation, and hence the total cost of construction will come down. You need to do that much test which is required. But if you keep on testing, if you unnecessarily do a lot of tests, of course the cost is going to increase. So you need to think of those optimal tests at which you will be able to exactly know the property of the soil required, and hence suggest the right kind of foundation treatment. So total cost is going to reduce at this point of time, but if you unnecessarily take more tests, cost is going to increase. Same thing happens in a treacherous soil condition. So total cost is going to be much higher, because you are having a treacherous soil, a difficult soil to deal with. Therefore, you need maybe to spend a little more on foundation. You may have to spend on foundation treatment, the ground modification, and so on. So in those cases, you may have to spend little more on investigation. You may have to do some more tests. It is just like you go to a doctor for your health checkup to find out what kind of illness you have. And earlier days, doctor would assume something. Hello, any disturbance? Okay. And doctor would possibly give the medication without testing, but today testing is essential. But if it is a simple problem, you undergo simple tests. If the problem is more complicated, doctor will advise for more tests. But unnecessarily, he should not ask the patient to go for more or rigorous tests, even for a smaller problem. So exactly the similar way, you need site investigation, right kind of site investigation. And from that, you will be able to have lot of savings in the project cost, and you will be able to build a robust and safe structure also. Well, the other problem today is deep excavation. See, in cities, we have very limited space. Already built structures are removed, and then you are going to build more structures. Naturally, because of the limit in the space, you build them vertically. Tall structures are common. And when you build a tall structure, automatically you need to think of the foundations which are taken deep into the ground. So deep excavation becomes essential. And many a times when you build a tall structure, you will also try to have one or many floors of cellars, maybe for underground parking. Sometimes you may have 3 floors, 4 floors below the ground. That means you need to excavate for every floor at least 3 meters. If it is 3 floors, you need an excavation of more than 10 meters. Next to it, there may be an existing building, and maybe a tall building. So you need to make an excavation. Friends, today we have been seeing a lot of casualties due to those excavations done improperly without, you know, taking the support of a good geotechnical engineer. So there have been, statistics that among the fatalities that happen, the construction worker suffers the most. So you have to be careful as engineers. And among the fatalities, the construction worker suffers. Most of the fatalities do happen because of excavation. Because, proper care is not taken during excavation. That is the statistics available, which means you have to be very, very careful. You see here, this worker is trying to clear up the soil, maybe for putting the foundation. He has no idea what kind of soil is here. What is it going to do? Is it likely to fall down? Is there any problem? Maybe there will be heavy rain. Maybe, some heavy vehicle will come and stand here. And if at all the soil decides to collapse, there is absolutely no way you can save him. So we have to be extremely careful. We should be able to maybe monitor, or we should be able to understand what it can do and provide with good supports. There have been, unfortunately, many casualties in the past. I just got this one on WhatsApp, and I thought I will show you this a small video showing how the collapse happened. Somewhere in Sulia in 2019, I am told it's a WhatsApp one, but you can see this is a typical construction site where excavation is done maybe for about 5 meters, 6 meters or so for the foundation purpose. All people are working here. I don't know. I'll just try to show you here. People are working continuously, and they are absolutely having no idea about what is happening to the ground. We don't know whether the ground is intact or it has decided to collapse, and suddenly you will see that the entire thing comes down. You can see that this has come down. Okay, and whenever it is next to impossible to control, inside soil will be building the stresses, and when these stresses are within the strength of the soil, it is okay. Once it exceeds, there will be explosion like this. It will be a sudden collapse, and you will have hardly any scope to save anybody working there. And this is a common thing which happens during construction, and hence while you are thinking of deep excavation, you should be very careful. You can see here excavation is done, next to it there is a tall structure. Here also excavation is done, next to it there is a tall structure. So what they have done, they have thought about some kind of a treatment here. The treatment here is a soil nail which is put. So you can see these dots, all these dots suggest that some kind of a protection method is followed. There are many techniques today. You can use any of the techniques as I have listed here, which will help you. In general, all these require earthwork. But friends, my advice is you minimize earthwork to whatever extent possible. The lesser the earthwork done, the better it is for the soil. It is not unnecessarily stressed. Either when you put more soil on top or when you remove the soil, the stresses in soil are going to change. Sometimes vertical stress will increase, sometimes horizontal stress will increase. All these cause a lot of problems. So I always say, as much minimizing of earthwork, that much you will be safe. So try to keep the earthwork as minimum as possible. Of course, I cannot say that stop earthwork excavation, because we have projects, we have infrastructures which require huge amount of earthwork. Well, one important thing I always say in geotechnical engineering is it is a combination of both science and art. It is not just only scientific. You need some experience also. So if you have a problem and if you approach two different geotechnical engineers, quite likely both of them may give two different treatments to solutions. You don't need to panic. So if they know very well what exactly is the situation, the two solutions can be very, very different, unlike in case of structural engineering. So I always try to say, let us say here this man with his wife is traveling with his donkey. So one thing he can do is, both of them comfortably can sit on it, or one of them can sit on it, or all of them can, both of them can walk along with the donkey. Whatever he does, people will comment. If both of them are sitting, people will say, oh, what a nasty character he is. He's troubling this animal. If he makes his wife sit, or if he himself sits, people say that he's cruel when he makes his wife, walk down. And if he makes her sit, people call him as idiot. And again, if both of them walk along with it, people again say certain things. So don't worry about what people say. You just have to believe in yourself. You just have to have faith, confidence within you. And if you give a solution which is rational, I'm sure it is going to be perfect. People have to use technology. Don't ever think the classical old solution itself is good. Today, like any other engineering, civil engineering has also developed. Geotechnical engineering has also developed. I want you people to use technology, but the concept, the fundamentals you should use. Here, a olden day crow, to fetch water, it used the innovative method of piling up stones to lift up the water. Today's crow need not do that, because it knows that we do drink a lot of soft drinks, use straw, and then throw here and there. We are not really bothered about placing them at the right place. What it has to do is just fetch one straw and then fetch the water from here. So try to use technology like this one, and hence make your solution as simple as possible. We are going in for taller structures. We are almost having 1 kilometer tall structure now, but there is a saying about much taller ones. Who knows, very soon we will have 1 mile structure, and later on much taller ones. So when you build tall structures, please note all of them have to be built on ground. There are many challenges a geotechnical engineer faces, and we need to be extremely careful. And today, geotechnical engineering is as much grown as the superstructure engineering, the structural engineering. Lot of activities do happen below the ground. It could be foundation, it could be tunnel, it could be soil exploration, retaining wall, several things. Who knows, we might even build a city below the ground. Already we have a lot of metro stations, you have big markets in those places. So we have lot of activities possible, and geotechnical engineers are going to have big time in that. That's why I called my lecture as Geotechnic for Infrastructure. Friends, always remember, foundation is the most important component of a structure. If it is safe, half your problems are solved. So always think of strong foundation on stable ground. So here, this was during the Bhuj earthquake. People found out that weak foundation on poor soil always was vulnerable, but strong foundation on stable ground, it survived. Here also you can see this structure. It is resting on pile foundation taken deep into strong stable ground. Neighboring soil suffered miserably. It experienced settlement very quickly in about an hour's time, 2 hours time, due to liquefaction. But nothing happened to the structure because it was built on strong and stable ground. So with this, friends, I conclude mentioning that soil is the most important construction material, and because it has complex characteristics, you have to handle with care. I'm sorry I could not spend time on case studies, but in general, case study is very important in civil engineering, even more so in geotechnical engineering, because lot of complexities in soil. Only by case studies you will be able to understand the performance better. And as I told, geotechnical engineering is both art and science. With that, I thank all of you for your patient listening. I thank the organizers, Mr. Engineer Rahil and company of Steady Dynamic Consultants for giving me this opportunity. I'm also proud and happy that I'm a part of Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, which is also the co-host for this webinar. Thanks one and all. Yeah,
Thank
over to you, Rahul.
thanks a lot for the beautiful session, sir. Share. So now let us have a short, quick Q&A sessions. To make this Q&A session interactive, we'll keep it open. Whoever want to ask question one by one on their audio, not video, only audio, and you can ask the questions. Please note one by one. So anyone? Yes, go ahead.
Professor, hi. This is Raghav.
Oh, nice. Hi, Raghav. Nice talking to you.
Yeah. See, actually, regarding this soil samples, we are discussing regarding this foundation. So, is there any thumb rule for this soil samples to be collected? I mean, when we are,
Anyway,
number of.
I understand your question. As I told you that geotechnical engineering is both art and science. Many a times you will have to rely on experience. You go to a site which is 1 acre and you want to extract sample. So from where do you extract? So that is a big challenge. So normally, basically, you have to have an idea as to what kind of a building is coming, and you are going to have a heavier part of structure and so on. And then what depth you should go for is another big challenge. So all these do involve some amount of experience, some amount of knowledge. So I say, more than thumb rule, it has to be handled from case to case basis, and it requires some amount of experience, definitely. So you have to decide what kind of exploration is. A open pit exploration acceptable, or do you have to think about boreholes? If boreholes, how many boreholes? So and till what depth you have to go? Do you have to go till hard rock? Sometimes you might find hard rock at 10 meters depth, 5 meters depth, but sometimes you may even have to go for 50 meters without a hard rock available. So should you think of borehole up to that? So I would say it is the experience as well as visual looking at the site from case to case basis, along with, of course, the knowledge which is important.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. What I actually meant was, whatever the rock structure which is present below the ground. So,
okay,
how variant it will be? I mean, say instead of a site, this is what, because I experienced the same thing in one of my sites. So,
okay, you may come across rock. Sometimes, if it is intact rock, you will be happy. Unfortunately, sometimes you may find disintegrated rock. If it is disintegrated rock, it is sometimes as bad as soil is. So its strength may be 1/10 or 1/20th of intact rock. So you'll have to really understand how much disintegrated and how much bad it is. So today you might use the non-destructive methods, geophysical explorations and so on, or even trying to find the properties through shear wave velocity and so on. So you have certain methods by which you can explore initially without even doing the excavation, and then take up the decision. But that is a challenge, and that's why I said in the beginning, today we don't have good capacity to interpret what is there below the ground. We need real experts there, and that will be the order of the day in geotechnical engineering in future. Just like we have in medical field, the radiologists, and they are all in great demand. We will have people in exploration in great demand in future.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome. Yeah. Any other question?
Hi, Professor. We have
Yeah.
two questions. One from Usha, Miss Usha. What will be the maximum depth excavation can be done without collapse of soil?
I think, Usha, you must have studied geotechnical engineering. You must have seen, when you are learning about retaining walls, earth pressure, or even, slope stability problem, what is the depth up to which you can excavate, say vertically, without the soil being disturbed or soil collapsing? If it is purely cohesionless soil, unfortunately, you just cannot excavate at all because it cannot stand by itself. You need a support. On the other hand, if it is a cohesive soil, it all depends on how much cohesion is there. You have the formula 2c by gamma multiplied by 2, 4c by gamma, up to which the earth pressure will balance. So c is the cohesion, gamma is the unit weight of soil. You can easily compute, and approximately, up to about 2 to 3 meters of excavation, we say, it is shallow excavation. Anything more than 3 meters, that requires because it is like that. If you are going in some disturbance, may I request you to mute? Okay, thank you. So anything beyond 3 meters, we say it is deep excavation. You have to be careful. So that is one question, and there was another question I was told. Please do ask.
Yeah. There is one more question, Deepa Venkatesh from Deepa Venkatesh. How geophysical techniques used to detect both soil and rock composition?
I told, no? It is very similar to you have NDT in concrete. So you use geophysical methods by which, you're going to cause some amount of disturbance, some amount of impact on the ground, and the waves do travel through the soil medium. And when these waves travel through the soil medium at different locations, you will have kept the sensors to collect the recordings. So you will know during that how much is the speed of wave travel. And from speed of wave travel, we should be able to identify whether it is an intact soil without any change in the properties, or whether it is a poor soil where, the velocity keeps changing. If it is a good soil, speed with which the waves travel is faster. Otherwise, it will be slower. So shear wave velocity is one very good measure to identify the properties of soil. So you use geophysical methods wherein you have cross hole, down hole, several methods, and you can try to find out at what depth you have engineered rock, you have hard rock, and so on. But most of the times for simple buildings, it is open excavation, which is good because you will actually see what is this kind of soil you have. Otherwise, borehole, because you will directly have a feel of the soil. So these methods, as on today, can be supportive kind of ones, but this is increasing now, improving now, and maybe a day may come when we will say that geophysical methods can be convenient replacement to the conventional techniques which we are having.
Okay. And we have one more question from Mr. Puneet Sagar. What
Okay.
procedure to be adopted when we find rise in water table during middle of construction?
No, you don't have to bother. After all, you should understand what water will do. Usually the problem you have with water is, when soil comes in contact with water, it becomes weak. But during construction, if you come across water, it may cause problem to construction. Just don't bother. You simply pump out water. And remember, the biggest problem is clay soil. And in clay soils, water does not freely come out. It simply drinks water. It doesn't allow water to go out. So if at all water is coming out easily, it is a porous ground, which means, mostly it is granular soil. So if you're getting water continuously, don't bother too much. You just have a number of pumps to eliminate water, deplete the groundwater table in that local area, do the construction as quickly as possible. And after that construction, if water comes up, doesn't matter. So yeah, in general, water is the worst enemy to geotechnical engineers. But in this case, you don't have to bother much.
Okay. Guys, still somebody's voice. Prabhavati, please, can you just mute your voice? Professor, we have one more question from Kavya. Sir, in ancient days, construction material is soil, but in modern days, cement. Okay, which one is best for stability of structure?
Very difficult to say. Today, we are talking about sustainability. So we are talking about reducing the, unnecessary use of energy and so on. So you have lot of alternate materials. You have to think which one is the most feasible one, and you have to give a lot of importance towards sustainability. You should not overuse the available soil and deplete our natural resources. So at the same time, cement, concrete, you'll be consuming so much of energy. You'll have to balance. All these materials are available, and it is up to a clever engineer to choose the best one depending on the requirements. So I would simply say that it is the challenge to the engineers to decide which is good, which is, for a particular location, for a particular project.
Okay. We have one more question from Manwat. What should be done if the land is filled for about 20 feet with loose soil? How do we construct the foundation?
Please
what are the
note.
precautions? I think he is looking like what are the precautions that we need to consider in designing the foundation when we have a loose soil of 20 feet?
Yeah, please note, if it is a filled up land, that means it is a man-made fill. When it is a man-made fill, you don't know when it was filled. It could be few days back, it could be few years back, it could be decades back. So whenever you have a filled up soil, there are many challenges. First thing, unlike natural soil, you don't know the property. At one place, it may look very stiff. Just next to it, 1 meter away, the properties can be very different. Therefore, if I have to investigate and tell what is the safe bearing capacity at a place where you have filled up soil, I say only at the location where I have tested, this is the value. But next to it, I cannot make any comment because it is filled up soil. So in general, if it is a filled up soil, you have to be extremely careful. Make sure whether the filling is okay. Make sure by several of the tests, including geophysical methods, whether the density is okay. Only when things are fine, you will be in a position to ensure that you can build anything on that. If not, you will have to think about the alternate things. You may have to think about ground improvement or several other things. So my advice is, with filled up soil, you cannot take a risk at all. You have to ensure that absolutely there is no problem, and then only you have to go for the construction. Yeah.
So we have a lot more questions here.
Yeah.
Lot more questions. Maybe two more questions we'll take, and further questions we'll respond them through email.
Yeah, that is possible. Or we can still have one more session, one more talk, and definitely we can have as many question answers as possible. Yeah, we'll take two more now because I also have some commitments. So
Yes.
Please do
sure,
go for
two
that.
more will wind up. Okay, so we have a
question from. Okay, go ahead, Rahil.
Okay, we have a question from Mohammed. What preventive measures have to be taken to build a 10-story building on an expansive soil? What kind of foundation is recommended for this kind of structure?
Okay, I think I'll spend a lot of time on expansive soils later on. Only thing I want to say at this point of time is expansive soil poses a lot of problem to light structures, not a heavy structure. When you have a light structure built at shallow depth, there is every possibility that the soil below the foundation can swell and lift the structure up. On the other hand, if you have a tall structure, naturally you take it deeper. And when you take it deeper, there is less possibility that soil will swell, shrink at that depth, because there may not be scope for water to go there. So you don't have serious problems on very complicated structures taken in expansive soils, because you build the foundation deeper. Always the problem is for light structures, so you don't have to worry about tall structures on expansive soils. They will do very well, they'll perform very well. Okay, next question.
Okay, thank you. So we'll wind up with the final last question.
Please.
So we have a question. Any alternative source of soil for foundation as a future technology?
People are doing quite a lot, working quite a lot on different ways to modify the properties of soil. So you have the present, biotechnology methods use enzymes to enhance the properties of soil. Therefore, today you have very good methodologies by which you can improve the properties of soil. So you don't have to build deep foundations always. Even shallow foundations can be used with appropriate kind of ground improvement technique. As I told earlier, there is scope for you to increase the strength, reduce the deformation, and then make the drainages easy, sometimes make it impermeable. So it requires the right kind of ground modification technique to be followed, and today that is perhaps the order of the day. And then most of the times we try to think of shallow foundations wherever possible. So today you just don't have only deep foundation or shallow foundation. You have piled raft foundation, which is a combination of deep and shallow foundation. So that is also the order of the day. And all these for tall and complicated structures only. And for your regular simple structures, you don't have to think about complicated foundation. So many a times in geotechnical engineering, you have simple solution for a problem. So you don't have to look for complicated and very sophisticated solution. So most of the times I simply say, if you can control the movement of water, most of your problems are solved. You have to understand how to control. So from where you have to allow the water to go off and not disturb the ground. So in general, geotechnical engineering requires, some amount of common sense, some amount of knowledge, and some amount of smartness. So with this, I wind up now. I once again thank the organizers for giving me this nice opportunity to interact with you all. I hope, definitely I will be talking again. I'll request engineer Rahil and company to provide me a chance so that, I'll talk about case studies. I'll talk about different types of foundations. We'll do that soon, and I'll be able to answer more questions then. So I thank one and all for all your patient listening. And I thank Steady Dynamic Consultants for giving me this opportunity. And I thank my organization, Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, also for giving me a chance to use this time for webinar. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. I really thank you for spending your time, valuable time with us. And soon we'll catch up with the case studies. A lot of feedback we are getting to conduct case studies. Shortly we'll catch up with the case studies. And whichever questions, lot of questions we have missed, we would like to reply through email. And any further questions can be mailed to our mail ID mentioned on the poster. So we would like to wind up the session now. So I would like to thank all the attendees, and also would like to say sorry for the technical glitches, and few people were unable to join the link. So there are some constraints with Microsoft Teams when large audience are loaded. There are some constraints with it. So sorry for that. So for the upcoming events and workshop, I request everyone to follow our LinkedIn page. We have mentioned on the joining link, address, mail, what you have sent. You can follow our LinkedIn page to get our upcoming training, workshop, and webinar sessions. So thank you, everyone. So have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.